Hi, I'm Wendy Kohlmeyer. I have been in the real estate business for 36 years, mostly in Oklahoma, but I'm a Bloomington native and I've done a lot in Bloomington as well. So I happen to live at Eagle Pointe, and I am going to go over with you today the 5 biggest mistakes that buyers make when buying at Eagle Pointe. So let's dive right in. So the first mistake would be to not pay attention to what the HOA dues are and to verify that information and not rely on what the MLS says they are. So that is the first mistake. Now, I've mentioned this in another video, and I will link that video in the show notes as well as up here. That talks about all the different villages. It's a couple of years old, but we're going to go through today and kind of look at some of these different places. This was actually the first condo I ever bought out here. You can see right back here, and it is in Woodridge. So some of the dues and things that you need to know is there are 2 sets of dues at Eagle Pointe, one for each village. There are 17 villages here, and you pay the largest dues to that village, and each village is separate as far as the amenities that they have. This particular village has a pool and a tennis court. So I don't really want to show them to you today because, like I said, it's spring and they're just starting to clean up everything. So nothing has been really done and the pool's not open, so everything looks a little still like winter. So the different dues that you're going to be paying are, what that's going to cover is it's going to pay for your exterior insurance only. So what that means is it's going to pay for the insurance on the buildings. So the siding, the roofing, any problems that you might have. But you do want to keep in mind that it is an HOA, and it does take them a little while to get around to all the different things. So it's not going to be like you call a repair person and it's going to happen that day or that week or whatever. It could be a while. And that's one thing that you need to know. It is not going to pay for your interior insurance. And a lot of people make this mistake, and it's a huge mistake and could be very costly. My first condo that I owned caught on fire a couple of years after I'd purchased it. And I was not at home at the time, and the unit next door, the story goes, is that it was being rented and the people were partying and put food on the grill. They had a gas grill and forgot about it, went up to the clubhouse for more drinks, and the grease from the grill dripped onto the propane tank, and the propane tank exploded. What I want to show you is, you can see a little arm of the lake down there in between the trees. But this is Hoosier National Forest. We border Hoosier National Forest. And the fire wouldn't have been put out as quickly, but the Clear Creek Fire Department was having a hog roast. And so they had invited all the other fire departments from around town, and they all had brought an engine with them. So they all came over to put out the fire. Well, the building was damaged, of course, and everybody had to move out. My insurance only paid for 6 months of extra housing, and guess what? At the end of that 6 months, they hadn't even started the rebuild on it. So fortunately, I was fortunate enough that I quit renting and purchased another unit in another village here at Eagle Pointe because I enjoyed Eagle Pointe so much. But I waited for this unit to be finished and they only rebuild the exterior of it and put the walls back in. They don't do anything else, painting, flooring, any of that. So you have to do all the interior yourself. So my point is that you need to have the interior insurance and not think that it's not going to happen to you. I will tell you that I moved back here from Oklahoma, and this has been, I don't know, 15 years ago. And the insurance agent I had was a friend of my brother's, and she had never insured a condo before. She told me that I was insuring it for too much money. So I reduced how much the interior insurance was, and guess what? It wasn't enough to cover the interior, and so I had to pay out of pocket to get it finished before I could sell it. So that was no bueno, and you don't want to be in that same type of situation. So know about the insurance. I am educating you today. Be sure and get separate interior insurance, no matter where you live in a condo. So the other thing that you need to know is that Point Services, or PSA, is a separate condo due that you will pay. It's the same amount for every single person out here, whether you have a 1-bedroom, a 2-bedroom, a 3-bedroom, a 4-bedroom, or you own a house. You are going to have to pay that fee. And that fee pays for gate system and keeping that operating functionally. It pays for the roads and the lighting out here and the snow removal on the main roads. That's all. And it pays for the clubhouse and what goes along with that, maintaining the pool and the restaurant and bar and things like that. Now, as I mentioned before, they do have a clubhouse out here and a restaurant. Sam's does not operate the restaurant anymore. It's operated by Eagle Pointe. So that is new as of this year. You just want to make sure that you know that and that you're aware of that. So each of the condos has separate amenities. A lot of the different villages have pools and tennis courts, but there are some that don't. And we'll talk about that too. So that's the biggest thing. You want to make sure that you've got the right amount for the PSA, which is just over $200 a quarter now. And each unit is going to be different based on the square footage of the unit. So you definitely want to be aware and know what you can and can't do. There is a site called Eagle Pointe PSA, and if you go to that site and then up at the top there's different villages, you can pull up the bylaws and the covenants for each village and find out the restrictions on them. Now, another thing to remember is the HOA rules. Okay, so this is where the gate code for all the gates is, and they have a directory which you can do by name, or you can do an access code if you've got one, or you can do, I guess, QR code that they will send you from your phone. So this controls all the gates. This controls all the gates, and you want to, there's one at every interior and exterior gate. So you want to be really mindful of this, because a lot of people, they'll either run through the gate or bump it, something to screw up the arms or whatever. But I'm going to show you. You can see that this pole over here has a camera on it, and so it's going to record anybody that runs through the gate, and you are going to get charged $250. It will lock in on your license plate, and whether you are a guest or a resident, you will get charged. And if you are a renter, whoever you're renting from, the homeowner, will get charged the gate fee. So they will pass it on to the tenant, and they might add extra charges on there, I don't know. But that's something to be aware of. Another reason why people make buying mistakes at Eagle Pointe is they assume that every condo and or house is located on the lake or the golf course. So that is a huge mistake to make because there are very limited condos on the lake. Now, you will find quite a few, but they don't come up for sale that often. And when they do, they're going to sell for a premium, whether they're updated or not. So that is one of the mistakes. Now, I'm going to flip you around here and just show you these condos up here. You can see these all have a lake view. But like I said, you do not want to make that mistake. It is a very windy day here, and you definitely want to get with somebody that knows what all the units have. And there are plenty of lovely condos and houses out here, but like I said, not all of them have a lake view, and you can't depend upon that. Another mistake that people make is assuming that all the condos have garages. Well, they don't. So I'm gonna go through each one, and I will tell you what do and what don't to try and help you out when you are looking for a place and you really want a garage. So Bay Pointe has their 2 and 3 bedroom units have garages, but their 1 bedroom units do not. Bayview has some garages. A lot of people sell them with the property. So they're kind of at the beginning of Bayview, but they are not attached to the unit. But not all those units have garages. Like I said, they're usually sold with the property. The Courtyard. The Courtyard does not have garages. There's like 4 garages there that I've seen people sell them before as individual garages. So a lot of people like that because they have extra storage, and they might fit a small boat into one of those garages, or kayaks, or they just need to store a bunch of stuff. So that's another thing, is that storage is at a premium in Eagle Pointe, and you will have some storage in some different villages, but not all villages. Now, a lot of the villages have exterior storage where it's like a storage compartment or a closet, and it will be lockable, so you will own that part as well. So Eagle Bay 1 and Eagle Bay 2, they have some garages that are transfer with the ownership of the property, but not all units have garages. Eagle Cove, there are no garages available there, as well as East Bay, no garages. Fairway Knoll is houses, so all those houses do have garages, 2-car garages. Green Ridge, that's where I am right now, so let's take a little walk there. Green Ridge does have garages, so they are 2 to 3 bedroom units. There might be an occasional 4 bedroom here, but you are not going to find 1 bedrooms here. But you can see the end units have 2-car garages, but the interior units have 1-car garages. So there's usually 4 units in each building, and like I said, the interior units have the 1-car versus the end units with the 2-car. Front 9 is single family housing, and they all have garages as well. All the houses look the same though, so they look like condos, but they are houses. Then there's Harbor Point. Most of those have garages. They're not attached to the unit though, so you do have to walk a little bit to get to the garage. LaSalle Woods, most of them have carports. You can convert the carports if you talk to your neighbor first and you agree to pay that expense and put a garage door on them. And you also have to put a side entry door in too. But a lot of people have done that if they didn't want the open carport. All the 1-bedroom units, LaSalle Woods has a few. They do not have garages, but they will have an exterior storage for people to put their stuff. Point Cove is houses, and the houses will have garages as well. Point Retreats do not have garages. Those are over behind the clubhouse, and they are really small units, maybe like 400 square feet, and they do not have much storage at all. So those are 1-bedroom and efficiency units, condos. Then there's the other thing that I want to mention is that a lot of these units, this is Water's Edge, and a lot of these units do not have garages either. Now, some of them do on the lake, and you can see them here, but these are very few and far between. These do not come up for sale very often. And so most of the units are not going to have a lake view. So you can see that they have a gorgeous lake, like these units have a gorgeous lake view in the winter time. But as soon as those leaves come up, they are not going to have that great of a view, and you can't cut the trees. That's DNR property, and they don't allow it. So if a tree falls over, that's where it stays. You can't clean them up either. So that is something to know up front before you get moved into a unit and you're disappointed. And Water's Edge 2 does not have any garages. And Woodridge, we talked about Woodridge, and Woodridge is the largest village at Eagle Pointe, and it does not have any garages. So that's something to keep in mind. Know your villages and know which have garages if that's important to you and which do not. Another mistake that buyers make is thinking that they can purchase at Eagle Pointe and turn their unit into a short-term rental. There are restrictions on that. In fact, I only know of 2 villages at this time that have legal short-term rentals. And short-term rentals, I mean VRBO and Airbnb. Most of the villages have a 3 or 4 month rental policy, meaning that you can rent it, but the minimum is 3 months. So you need to respect that. I will tell you a story of somebody that I know purchased a unit and decked it out for Airbnb, and the village caught them and they had no use for the unit. So they turned around after owning it for 1 month and getting some wild Airbnbers in there, and they had to sell it. So you do not want to make that mistake, because that is going to cost you money. So the 2 villages that I know of that still allow short-term rentals are Woodridge and Point Retreats. Now, you need to verify that before you come out here and buy, and don't just go on my word about it, but get it verified through whoever you choose as a realtor that you can turn it into a short-term rental. So if you need help with that All my info is below in the show notes, and I will be glad to help you. But please be aware that you cannot just come out here and purchase a nice condo and think that you are going to be able to rent it out overnight, because they just won't be having it. And I know if you go on the VRBO and the Airbnb sites, I've seen plenty of units on there that aren't supposed to be on there. And it's just a matter of time before they get caught and fined. So you want to make sure that you do it right, because it can potentially cost you a lot of money by not knowing what's going on. Another mistake that buyers make is thinking that they can just let their dogs do their duty wherever they want and not picking up after it. You can see that these HOAs are serious about dog poop, and a lot of the village I live in has like pet baggie stations around with trash cans to encourage people to pick up after their pets, but a lot of people don't do it, and like I said, if you get caught, you get fined. So that is something else to keep in mind. Everybody out here has a dog, it seems like, and you definitely want to do that because Eagle Pointe is quite beautiful, and you just want to keep it nice for others. And lastly, the biggest thing that you want to remember that a lot of buyers make is not budgeting for potential updates in a lot of these units. So a lot of these units were put in the 70s, and some of them still have original cabinets and vinyl roll flooring and things like that. So to get the most bang for your buck out of these units and increase what you're going to get out of them, you want to know what things are going to cost to update. And now with the pandemic and everything getting that much higher, there's just a lot of cost associated with remodeling, and that is one thing that a lot of buyers have not anticipated. So you definitely want to do that. If this video has helped you at all, please like and subscribe, and I will see you next week.